Tatlo din. Okay. Yeah. Test, test, mic test. Yeah. Good, good, good.
Hello? 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 Ayun.
Ah,
Okay.
ah,
Hello? Hello? Tatalikan po. Hello? Hello? No. Hello? 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 Okay na? Okay. Hello? Wala ulit eh.
meron siyang mahina lang. Kapag nilalakas na nag-feedback.
Hello? Okay. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Meron, meron.
Meron, no?
Mahina lang.
Mahina lang. Hello? Okay. Sige. Okay, apologies for the delay. Okay, so maybe we'll officially begin. Good morning, everyone. Our very warm welcome to everyone here with us in person and those who are attending the event virtually, since we are also simultaneously broadcasting this through Facebook Live and Zoom. This is the sixth episode of the monthly ethics seminar series, or MESS, as we like to call it, of the University of the Philippines Diliman Research Ethics Board. Also jestingly dubbed as Etika Inan at Etika Alaman. This public service information drive is a regular mainstay activity of the UPD Research Ethics Board happening every second Thursday of every month, supposedly. However, there were slight changes with, I think in July, we did not conduct this because we had a 3-day responsible conduct of research training workshop as well. So this public service intends to present lectures and discussions on matters concerning the responsible and ethical conduct of research, most especially those involving human participants. Discussions are varied and relevant to the current and very diverse research and scholarly needs of UP Diliman and other academic institutions, mindful of the requirement to always be up to date with the latest ethical approaches and standards in the conduct of research. It is designed to be informal and conversational, hence the idea of exchanging insights over lunch. So I am Gretchen Velarde, the coordinator of the UP Diliman Research Ethics Board and your moderator for today's discussion. Before we begin, we will just flash a slide here. Let me just read some reminders to all of the participants. So everyone is encouraged to have their lunch while listening to the guest speaker. Take note of your questions. Um, this is very informal. We would always want to take the opportunity to actually personally and directly communicate with our resource person, most especially for those who are interested to clarify things about your research. Feel comfortable and participate during the open forum and kindly fill out the evaluation form. We also participate if there will be any feedback and suggestions for us to improve the conduct of the seminar series. So a certificate of attendance will be given upon completion of the evaluation form. So without dragging this any further, we're very glad and grateful to welcome our guest speaker and resource person for this month's ethics seminar with her lecture titled Meeting the Gaps in Research Ethics. Dr. Marla Frances Mallari is a faculty member of the UP Diliman College of Kinetics since 1998. As chair of the Sports Science Department in her second term, she has worked to streamline administrative processes following quality assurance guidelines. Her vision includes establishing a fully equipped exercise science laboratory that supports the needs of CHK students, varsity athletes, and faculty involved in research. She earned, interestingly, her undergrad degree in BS Food Technology from the UP College of Home Economics, and then she completed the diploma in physical education from CHK in 1999. In 2009, she received her MS in Human Movement Science, particularly on exercise science from the same institution. And in 2018, she completed her PhD in sports science with specialization in sports nutrition at Mahidol University, Thailand, with a full scholarship from UP. Dr. Mallari's research focuses on anthropometry, sports nutrition, hydration, and collegiate athletes and physical activity and health in both children and collegiate athletes. She aims to establish a hydration laboratory where she can mentor students in conducting hydration research while also providing support to athletes, which actually explains why she's also actively participative in research ethics review, since her research involves a lot of human participants. She was the main investigator in research collaborations with JCS Pharmaceuticals in 2017 and Nestle, particularly Milo, in 2023. In 2021, she received the PhD Incentive Award from OVCRD. Dr. Mallari is also recognized for her involvement with the College of Human Kinetics Research Ethics Board, as well as a leader in her field, serving as vice president of the Sports Nutrition Association of the Philippines and as an advisor to the Gatorade Sports Science Institute. Her work has been recognized with multiple awards, including the UP Diliman Centennial Faculty Grant and the UP Professorial Chair. Lastly, as an interesting note as well, she previously competed internationally in dragon boat rowing and participated in club level badminton competitions. She was also a member of the UP Mountaineers and one of the country's pioneers of artificial rock climbing. So everyone, Dr. Marlo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your introduction. So we're going to connect this now to them. I didn't know that you were going to read the entire. They, they know so much about me now. I know privacy issue. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Is that okay? May mic na ako, so you can turn it off. All right. So, good afternoon. As Gretchen said, you can take your lunch if you have your lunch with you here. But kung wala, I think my talk is gonna take probably just 30 minutes, no, and we can have as Gretchen said, no, interaction. Maybe you can ask the questions, no, specific without their consent. Okay. So, in the course of this experiments, the defendants committed the murders, brutalities, cruelties, tortures, atrocities, and other inhuman acts. Right? So as part of the verdict, the court enumerated some rules for what we call permissible medical experiments, now known as the Nuremberg Code. So these include voluntary consent, benefits outweigh the risks, and ability of the subject to terminate participation at any time. Human research ethics rest on three basic principles that are considered the foundation of all rules or laws governing research. These three basic principles are respect for persons, hence the informed consent, no, especially vulnerable populations as well. Number two is beneficence or doing good, and justice or fairness. The eligibility criteria and the recruitment methods must be fair. So these principles apply to everyone. They're universal and are to be followed wherever research on humans is conducted. There are many different ways in which research is reviewed and monitored to make sure that these principles are followed. So you have the Belmont report. We also have the World Medical Association Declaration of Helsinki, the first version of which was done in 1964, 7 revisions throughout until our latest version in 2013. I think the next one is coming out next year, 2025. So it is a cornerstone document on human research ethics, focusing on the responsibilities of researchers assumed to be physicians, no, or doctors towards the protection of research subjects' rights within clinical trial protocols, consideration of identifiable human material and data or data privacy, and informed consent. So there is also a declaration statement, no, in these cases na hinahanap ang particular statement na to if you will submit your research for publication. So it states something like this, no? Research involving human participants has been conducted ethically according to the principles of the World Medical Association Declaration of Helsinki. So it's specifically stated in your what is required before running your research protocol, including participant recruitment. So the process makes sure that the methodology is ethically sound, but the following should also be aligned to the ethics guidelines so that participant protection is ensured. So the parts, no, include your introduction, your methods, participant protection, and an appendix. So these are what are usually contained in these different parts. So ethical conduct in research is also crucial for the validity and practical applicability of research. So some methodological flaws can undermine your study's impact, and ethical approval is often a prerequisite for publication, hence the importance, no, of ethics review. It is suggested that participants may be involved in designing the research, no, if they are children, young people, no, so that the stakeholders are also addressed eventually, and their perspectives are considered. So feedback pathways, if there's information that needs to be given back to your participants, then it should be done so as well. So transparency and independence, the researchers should ensure independence of their projects, and be transparent about the involvement of other parties, such as funding, sources, to avoid potential biases and conflict of interest. So these should just be reported. Hindi naman po bawal na magkaroon ng funding. Just should be revealed. Okay, so this is from a paper by Harris and authors about ethical standards in sports and exercise science research. So this was updated in 2020. So aspects are quite universal when it comes to basic ethical research principles and the need for ethical review. In terms of the research protocol, the study design and statistical analysis should be clearly described and justifiable. Funding information should be revealed for potential conflicts of interest. And if there will be arrangements for compensation, they should also be detailed. And the informed consent, participants should provide consent freely and in confidence, ideally in writing. We will discuss this a little bit more later. And it must be appropriate for the target population. Information given must be clear and comprehensible. So secondary data analysis, person identifiable data collected for one purpose cannot be used for another without explicit consent, ethical approval, and compliance with data protection legislation. The use of placebo. So there's a need for participants to be randomly assigned to experimental or placebo arms with consideration for access to interventions after the testing periods. So ethical use of placebos should be carefully managed. So when gatekeepers are used, so these are intermediaries who are used to contact potential participants, the participants should be able to contact the researchers directly to ensure that their choice remains confidential. Of course, we know about privacy and confidentiality. The researchers must ensure that they protect participant information and control the access to it as well. So on vulnerable populations, if research involves vulnerable individuals who cannot provide consent, they must be appropriately identified and approached with additional ethical measures in place. Now, last but quite important when it comes to sports and exercise research, the sample size, statistical power, and sample size considerations are important to ensure that the research is ethical. So a balance must be struck between burden on participants and the potential importance of study findings. So we always tell our students to try to compute for the sample size before they propose or put it in the proposals. It's quite important because it's unethical to have too many. It is also unethical to have too little. Okay, so you cannot derive your conclusions from too little, and too much is also an ethical practice. So most, if not all, local IRBs, institutional review boards, ERCs, and REBs, I'm sure everyone knows what those mean, no? Would have used these two guidelines to formulate their SOPs. So especially in clinical research, the CIO-MS WHO in 2016, and your FREB guidelines 2017. But it doesn't end there. No? In the case of AHHMSREB is the Research Ethics Board wherein the CHK is a part of. So we started this initiative in 2021. It was still the pandemic. Okay, and we were meeting. We underwent FREB training. BRET certifications, basic research ethics training. Yes. So and then started a small group of representatives from the CA cluster. Okay, so we had a cluster review board, and we formed the Arts and Humanities and Human Movement Science Research Ethics Board, under which we have the CHK Research Ethics Committee. So here's the different categories for research proposals. I'm sure everyone is also quite familiar with this already. So personally, I've undergone two ethics review processes. No, I've undergone two in UP Manila. So I'm very happy that there are efforts in UP Diliman that are quite, it's progressing, and we are quite happy about that because although if the processes in UP Manila, no, it's very efficient. No? They've been doing this for many years already, but it's costly. Okay, so I had to pay both times considerable amounts. So we are very happy that UP Diliman is finally, and very soon we will have it. Okay, so a little bit more about the CHK Research Ethics Committee. So it's a subset, no, of the AHHMSREB, which comprises representatives from the CAL, CFA, CHK, CMC, and CMU. And the CHK has piloted the AHHMSREB ethics review process since January of 2023. So we've been doing it for over a year now. We review research protocols involving human subjects, adhering to the ethical principles of the Declaration of Helsinki, following a structured and tiered review process to ensure ethical compliance and protection of human subjects in research. So the application process basically requires submitting a research proposal, the proponent's CV, and informed consent form. The information on the process is also available in the CHK website. And for now, we are only accepting CHK affiliated research proposals, basically our students, graduate students, and faculty members. So moving on to a specific topic that I'm supposed to talk about today. So my curiosity about this came about from reviewing several student pieces, SEM after SEM, and having to remind students to contextualize the research. So it is possible that there is a real problem that needs to be solved, but is the problem relevant to the Philippines? Or specifically even to the participants who are part of the research? So as the world is getting smaller and smaller, due to technological advances in ease of travel and migration, we see more evidence of multicultural societies encouraging diversity in all aspects, including sports. Sports has the power to bring people together across cultural divides, but it can also highlight and amplify cultural differences, right? So as such, cultural diversity has become an increasingly important topic for research in the world of sports. Hence, the concern regarding globalization or universality of research ethics, which we will attempt to understand more today, will be discussed. So universality in research ethics is quite appealing. Why? Because the universal systems that are already in place are morally attractive. Okay, right? Beneficence, justice, non-maleficence, and respect for autonomous persons. So, as Filipinos, who are quite exposed to Western culture, this sounds very good to us, right? And it would probably sound good to many other countries. It's also easy for practitioners and ethics committees to apply the systems because it is well established already. Okay? Congruent with globalization and easier, after all, to apply the views of the culturally dominant, right? And well published, available material everywhere. Okay. However, despite the recent emphasis on Western models of bioethics, there is still much debate on whether ethical principles are common across cultures and can therefore be universally applied, or whether they are relative to each culture and must be applied individually. Okay? So here in this slide, we have a comparison on Western and non-Western cultures, no? Summarized here. As you can see, the differences are quite clear, and this can become a challenge when ethical review and informed consent is needed, right? So essentially, Western cultures stresses individualism, people as ends in themselves, and there is necessary to be informed consent if they need to participate in research, no, to protect the researcher and the participant as well. So the concept of freedom to choose for oneself is also mentioned. For non-Western, it stresses the belonging of individuals within society. Sometimes the individual is not actually free to choose for himself or herself. For example, in some situations where consent is granted by community leaders, religious leaders, or tribal leaders, no, they will decide, for the individuals. It happens. Of course, there's a clear requirement for this type of consent, that the authority figure is acting in good faith or for the best interests of the constituents. In certain cultures, only the head of the household can make decisions for everyone else. So the wives have to at least inform the husband before consent can be given. Okay, so very obvious differences. Now let's try to see, So my disclaimer here, I'm not a sociologist. I'm not an anthropologist, no. I'm only a sports scientist. Yes, but while doing research, for this particular talk, I encountered several papers, and the more I read, there was so much material, there's so much published on this topic, right? So the more I read, the more I was getting confused as to what I should actually include and not include. So if I if this is not complete, it seems that it's not complete. It's because there's just too much, to go deep into the topic. But anyway, yeah, from this paper, from an anthropologist's lens, transcultural means involving and extending beyond two or more cultures. So they believe in concepts that transcend cultural boundaries and are universal. Cross-cultural means that cultural groups are compared and contrasted with one another, looking for similarities and differences. So basically, cross-cultural research can yield transcultural concepts. So as examples, so naghanap din ako na related dun sa field ko, healthcare issues, that are transcultural. And before they were able to come up of these concepts or solutions, nag-cross-cultural research muna sila, right? So incidents, for example, of non-communicable diseases, that are pretty universal, kahit anong race ninyo. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So ethical guidelines are based on profound religious and philosophical beliefs that differ across countries and cultures. And there's always a possibility that conflict will occur when the researcher and the research come from different cultural backgrounds. Okay? So researchers must address the challenges of transcultural research by proposing culturally and context-sensitive solutions. So there are just two concepts here that I would like to introduce, because there should always be a balance, between the two. Actually, for me, ethical imperialism, ethical imperialism is when the participants, are directed to do exactly as they do at home. So, ini-impose yung kanilang culture, okay? A code of ethical behavior attitude is imposed on another community or society. Okay? And relativism, on the other hand, is when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Something like that. Okay, so it's a good way of describing it. So it's respecting that in different societies, people dress differently, eat differently, speak different languages, have different songs, appreciate different songs, have different music and dances, and have many different customs. Right. So the cultural relativist viewpoint prioritizes one, tolerance, understanding, and respect for varied cultural traditions, while the ethical imperialist position advocates universal ethical standards and ideals. Right? So IRBs and RECs need to be sensitized to issues in transcultural research. Project heads should anticipate potential problems and present ethically acceptable solutions early on during the proposal stages of the research project. So they should take into account religious or spiritual beliefs, including religious taboos of the culture. I made this an example here. I put this an example because this is something that anthropometrists from our college often do. So yung pag-measure ng skin tone body fat. Yes. Na hindi pwedeng gawin sa mga Muslim women. Okay? So we have to be respectful of that when we encounter those as well. So the signed informed consent form. So in certain cultures, they ask you, is a signature really important? Hindi ba pwedeng umuo na ako, okay na? Okay, so sometimes they say, my word is not good enough. Why do you need? I need signature. Okay, so the same way that vulnerable groups may not be able to give their signature. Okay, so it's possible that we can adopt by having a guardian, even the doctor or nurse, give the consent, or video, right? Video of consent may also be an option for some. So we do not limit ourselves to, the signature. Okay. In certain cultures, the signature is only given for very important documents. Tayo, Western culture, we sign for the packages that we receive from Exada. Right? So ganun siya ka. We easily give it away. So that's also something that I realized after doing this research. Parang, we have, I think, adopted it from Western culture that sign for everything. But in certain cultures, like they say in Egypt, they only sign like on their wedding documents, mga titles, mga important documents, just those. So you also have hierarchical issues, So this is always brought up. Diba? Yung power ng isang researcher over the participants. So, sometimes issues of getting payment for participation, and this sometimes affects how they, participate. They respond, in the research. Perceive inducement because they think that they cannot get the treatment, or the vaccine if they do not participate. Little formal education in the sciences. So this is basic. They are just plainly intimidated, because parang masyadong fluent yung researcher, So they do not understand the concepts of randomization, control groups, placebo. So susunod na lang sila. Okay? But the potential distrust, which could affect the conduct of the research, could happen. And syempre, we do not want that because that will affect the outcomes. So context-sensitive research ethics are desired, where both individual autonomy and the dominant local authorized patterns are respected. So also related to planning research projects properly, the author of this article contends that researchers should also be mindful of the need to consider their own beliefs, assumptions, attitudes, values, and paradigms, and the limitations of their humanness when working with research participants from racially, culturally, and linguistically diverse backgrounds, especially those backgrounds that differ from their own. Okay? So we may also apply this research that we do in minority groups in the country. We need to make sure that the researchers are qualified, they are trained, and any research has undergone proper review and informed consent. Not necessarily written informed consent if that is not possible, but by other means as well. So we should be open to that. So this article encourages greater methodological rigor in survey research conducted across cultures and or countries. So there's the need to define the problem properly and identifying, analyzing the effect of mediators and moderator factors, construct equivalence, maybe making use of multicultural research teams and international collaboration, measure equivalence. So this has something to do with if your questionnaire needs to be translated, then make sure that it is done in the proper manner, back translation, and then you do pilot studies and pre-tests. And avoiding use of terms and figures or jargon that is typical of only one culture or country. So medyo universal ang language. Sampling equivalence, using matched samples through non-probabilistic methods or statistical analysis, when the objective of the study is to examine differences or similarities between cultures or countries and examine the cross-national generalizability of theory, model, or construct. Data collection equivalence, using uniform data collection procedures and within acceptable timeframes, and of course, data analysis, such as determining whether the measures are reflective of the constructs of interest. So this is about cross-cultural studies of motivation in physical education. So the first point is trying to answer the question if motivation theories can apply across cultures. So the study looks at whether motivation theories from Western cultures can also work in other cultural contexts, particularly in physical education. So the second is about differences between cultures. The study found that while motivation can apply across cultures, the strength of motivation and its effects on learning differ between Western and Eastern cultures. And the third, the need for better understanding across cultures. The study suggests that future research should ensure motivation theories work equally and well across different cultures, especially as the world becomes more diverse. So applications now for research in sports and exercise science. So there is particular relevance of this for especially motivational aspects of sports psychology, psychology, management and marketing and communication. So as examples, there are actually research on how a coach and foreign athlete relate to each other. Tama? So sino ba yung mag-a-adjust? Yung coach ba? Yung foreign athlete ba? Or management? So things like that come up. And it's quite interesting because one of our graduates used to belong to the men's basketball team. So he was African. Hindi ko alam, hindi ko na sasabihin kung sino. But he did actually a study on this, no? How as a black person from Kenya or Africa, Kenya, tama yan, again, no? Adopted culturally in uh, Filipino basketball team, no? And they're very high profile pa. So, being topics like that, okay? There's also studying fandoms, no? For basketball and volleyball. The effect of social media, no? On these fans, the effect of social media on the athletes, no? Things like that. And and one more thing, no? Because leisure and recreation, no, is also a part of, some topics that we do, no, in research, especially our graduate research. No, may tagline na tayo sa Pilipinas, di ba na? It's more fun in the Philippines. Tama? But without actual cross-cultural research to substantiate it, can we say that it is true? Tama? Unless they did it, hearsay lang siya. Tama? So, these are things na naiisip ko, ano, maybe they should do some study, a large study to see that, is it really more fun in the Philippines? Okay, and of course, in what aspect? It has to be narrowed down as well. So, utilizing research from the Asia Pacific may be acceptable, especially in terms of physical abilities and performance. But culture differences should always be kept in mind, you know, especially when behaviors are concerned. Right? Ulitin ko, physical aspect may be comparable, but when behaviors are concerned, culture has to be always considered. So the answer here is, of course, to publish collected data. Marami tayong kino-collect na data, no? Pero pinapublish ba natin siya? And these have to be updated regularly. So just examples of context-sensitive applications for research in sport and exercise science, utilizing the Asian BMI, which is before we used to use the World Health Organization, so body mass index. Now we use the Asian BMI, right? The FNRI Pinggang Pinoy, right? Whenever the local or regional literature can be found, it should be used. General training and nutritional recommendations are mostly universal, but the needs of each individual and per sport are different. So, next. So this is my last slide. So to end this talk, ethics of sport can also be quite complex. Apart from the differences between countries and cultures, there's also cultural differences between and within sports. Iba-ibang sports, iba-ibang culture. Okay? This is why even within the same country, dito sa Pilipinas, cross-cultural research also exists within the world of sports. So, clinical research in this field is also highly relevant because of global sporting events such as the Olympics, no? Kakatapos lang ng regular Olympics, nasa Paralympics na tayo ngayon, where the use of illegal performance-enhancing drugs, no? The use of PEDs has been quite rampant. I'm sure everyone knows about what happened to Russia, right? So they are banned from joining the Olympics. The key takeaway is that universality in research ethics has its advantages. Still, we have to be culture and context sensitive when preparing research project proposals, trying to involve probably the study stakeholders, to craft a feasible design, keeping in mind the balance between getting the job done and protecting and ultimately helping the stakeholders who are our study participants. So these are my references. Thank you very much. You have any questions? Remove ko. Remove ko. Or okay. Baka may questions dun sa Zoom room. And of course,
Hello?
dito sa
Sorry po.
Yes, yes.
Hello? Oh no.
Ah, meron. I can hear
Ay,
you.
no? Clear naman, ano? Kaya lang for the sake rin po ng nasa Zoom.
Mm.
Oo. Okay na? Hindi na. Okay. Pero kailangan ko nito? Okay, definitely. Okay, thank you for all of those na pumunta talaga dito. I think, Dr. Marla, if it's okay, we can accommodate first yung mga inquiries.
In the room. Yes, yes.
And thank you po for this because just to provide context as well, no. I think as far as we know right now, the existing research ethics committees and boards that are currently functioning in Diliman, we only have one accredited one, the College of Home Economics. But beyond that, there are those functioning yung sa CSSP, ERB. They perform ethics review most especially for undergrad na research, and of course CHK.
Yeah.
Yun lang actually. And then the CHE as well for the undergrad.
Yeah.
So we're very grateful that we now have a resource person coming from CHK who can provide actually a very context specific na practice in terms of doing ethics review, most especially for those na talagang napaka hands-on kasi nung human participation in terms of research. No?
Yeah.
So anyone here having research right now na ang plano nyo ay may human participants or any questions specific to the talk of Dr. Mallari and also for REB, maybe the Diliman Research Ethics Board?
So any questions at all? Subukan. We will try to answer kahit beyond the topic
Any
that we
question that you have, because okay, Dr. Mallari also provided context on the importance of ethics review, but technically there is already a law since 2012 now. So you have the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and then the Philippine National Health Research System of 2013, which mandates actually that you have to undergo a research ethics review prior to the implementation of your research if you have human participation.
Yes.
So technically, for 12 years now, those who do not do that in the university, and of course, we're not saying that they are in the wrong, no? But technically, we've been doing it wrongly. Kasi nga, ang dami, ako, ang background ko rin is in psychology and history and archaeology, no? So we do field work, but we never, at least in our practice, halos hindi kami dumaan sa ethics review. Technically, diliman while mentioning yung mga college-based na mga ethics review boards, wala pa ring functional na college, na CU or constituent university na specific sa buong Diliman, no, na nagfa-function. So maybe any questions, no, if you have any questions na on ethics review, particular to your research or that we can discuss now actually. Okay, sige.
Yes. The CHK REC po. Only for our students and faculty. Exclusive po. Exclusive. Saan po? Yes. Yeah.
I only ask that kasi sa UST, may mga college-based siya.
College-based.
So instead of an entire university na REB or REC, per college siya. Although quite unique din naman yun. Actually, even the beginnings of,
Yes.
man, right? Even UP Manila before has 3 functioning ethics board, no? Before na-institute yung nila ng REB na talagang
They unified
university-wide.
everyone.
So talaga at the beginning, that would always be the case. In Diliman, that is more tricky because the diversity of discipline in Diliman is very specific, very unique siya as opposed to UP Manila na siguro 90% would be medical and clinical
And health.
specific and health. Yeah. So for example, when it And I think
Diverse.
mas particular kayo, no, yung say something about yung development tong sa AHHMSREB kasi I think yun yung mas strange for many people because before they think that ethics review is specific to medical research. Usually you have College of Fine Arts, Arts and Letters, yung ganon, right?
College of Music in our so um I think no kasi there was a core group coming from the College of Arts and Letters na they were also took their PhDs abroad, and with that experience parang oh, why is there none here when you need the review to be able to publish nowadays. So it's getting harder and harder to publish your work, your research without the ethical review. So with that initiative, no, binuo yung core group, no, and we underwent training and we wrote the SOPs. And so I wanted also to add that, no, nakalimutan ko that yung magsusulat ng SOP. So, hindi naman siya kinokopya. Kasi there's a template already in FRED na pwede mong kopyahin. If you can see the SOPs of the UP Manila REB and the AHHMSREB, medyo similar. But of course, ini-check yan isa-isa at kino-contextualize to what the group needs. To the discipline. But as you can see, this is a topic also that I will talk about dun sa FERCAP, kung matutuloy tayo. Yung diversity nga nung mga colleges within the AHHMSREB. So how we managed it. So titingnan yung mga, ano yung kinailangan namin magawa. But I think yung question ni Ma'am kasi about UPD, I think we're not in a position yet to
Actually, ma'am, paano ba? Dati kasi, of course, to provide context, no? Okay, so since 2012, may batas na. Unfortunately, the law came first before the existence of the infrastructure. So that's very strange because you are already violating something without any mechanism of complying, right? So even if gusto mong magpa-ethics review, if wala namang available service that can provide you with that, foul. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, considering here, for example, ma'am, I mean, not only in UP, no, it's specific to all universities that aside from providing curricular services, teaching, of course, that's really the core of a university, you do research, no? So you are requiring an endeavor to a group of people but also leading them to commit violations because nga wala namang service providing to comply. And unfortunately, kasi UP Manila is the first, of course, let's say in the UP system. Actually, before 2012, 2010, meron na yung UP Manila. Of course, because there's a need for that, mostly because funding agencies will never enter an agreement with an institution na walang mechanism to protect human participants. I mean, you're testing drugs, you're testing vaccines, no? So that's really it. Pero and so before, because in the entire UP system, it's only UP Manila providing the ethics review, tumatanggap yung UP Manila from other universities and other UP campuses. But right now, they're also inundated. Talagang binabaha rin sila. Also, unethical din to also accept something that you cannot manage efficiently as well. So for them to ensure efficiency, no, they decided, actually, all UP constituent universities, pag sinabi po naming CUs, no, so ito yung UP Visayas, Los Baños, yung ganon, because technically may autonomy rin kada CU within UP even if may one UP ka, no? So the accountability of the particular researcher within a particular CU can only be managed by that CU, no? So and that is why right now they became more stringent in terms of accepting protocols or proposals na hindi
primary proponent needs to be from UP Manila.
Yes. Pero technically as well, tumatanggap pa rin sila. Actually, in other, kasi you cannot say no to something na kailangan siyang sundin, pero there's no mechanism to follow. No, actually, I think Adamson and Uste and let's say even Ateneo, no, they also accept proposals not within, no, na maski hindi within their own university, if they can accommodate. But of course, the priority would always be their constituents. Yeah. And Paano ba? Okay, so that is why I think the discussion here is very important because we wanted to provide yung condition ng ethics landscape sa Pilipinas. No, we have a very long history of research involving human participants from the Spanish colonial period, most especially the American colonial period. So technically, we already have the historical context on why ethics in research is important, pero a bit delayed. And I think what's very
True.
what's good but also a bit sad sa sinabi ni Dr. Mallari na the thing that pushed the necessity to establish an ethics committee, let's say in Diliman particularly, was during the pandemic. There was a very strong requirement coming from reputable journals to not accept any manuscripts na hindi dumaan ng ethics review at hindi ethically cleared. Unfortunately, you cannot do retroactive review. So, ibig sabihin, kung na-acquire mo na yung data mo, tapos gusto mo siyang i-publish, that data becomes invalid now because the value of ethics review is for you to protect your human participants when you implement your research. But you've already implemented your research. So any damage or harm to the participants have already been committed. So that's the problem. We have a wealth of data right now na potentially tatanggihan ng any journal for publication. So that is a crisis, no?
Not
Tapos
only that, no, that data that you collected is basically unethically collected. So, di ba?
what
I'm guilty of that as well. Kasi nga, parang wala kang choice at the time, but you had to run it, no? Kasi may time bound. But
Pero at the same time, what we want to impress as well is that it's not just unfortunately, many of those who wanted to undergo ethics review is for their own benefit, no? Gusto nilang mag-publish. Pero what we also want to impress is that hindi naman sana yun yung fundamental principle of ethics review. Pero yun siguro yung magandang push, supposedly for people to comply. No? So,
may tanong. Your own research.
or, di ba dati kasi ako, to the 03 yung student number ko. So, matanda na ako. Pero dati, sa mga courses, napaka-normal magpa-require na sa isang course na tinitake mo sa isang subject, mag-interview ka dun sa kapitbahay mo. Yung ganun, tapos get the data. Technically, actually, that's wrong.
Yeah.
No? No, pero common siya. I'm not sure now. It's for Dr. Marla, siguro na, can you verify if some journals require researchers to have undergone a course in good clinical practice when submitting an article? Sports may be considered an affiliate of bioclinical research.
Yes.
Sa opinion, ma'am, sa CHK.
GCP, actually, just sa CHK, we don't require it. No? So within, but it's a special case, no, for our undergraduate and graduate and faculty, because as we develop the research protocol, no, it's usually through a guide of an advisor. So dun pa lang nababantayan na yung methodology, no. But in UP Manila, no, all the members of the team, of the research team, has to undergo good clinical practice certification. So that's free naman, no? Need a training. Yep.
So, to provide context, no, kunwari, when we say PI, no, primary investigator, ikaw yung lead. Pag nag-apply ka for research ethics review, kailangan mong mag-submit ng certificate that you've undergone actually any kind of research training, no? So, good clinical practice for the medical, merong GRP, good research practice, yeah. Merong RCR, responsible conduct of research, may basic research ethics training. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ka pwedeng mag-file ng application for ethics review if wala kang ganong certificate. It's usually good for 3 years. At meron namang online, self-paced, and also free na pwede mong makuha, no? So pero wala po palang requirement sa CHK
Sa
for
CHK.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, isa rin yun na challenge for Diliman to provide training to everyone, most especially the students and those who handle thesis na.
Okay. Any other
Pero for those ma'am na faculty na nagko-conduct ng research, 'pag nagpa-review sila sa inyo, wala ring, good clinical practice or ethics training na required?
So far we haven't been required. No, so far we haven't been required. Just because familiar na kami. Parang alam naman kasi namin yung level at which we can approve. So puro puro mga exempted pa lang yung pwede kasi nga we don't have the certification. Yeah.
Accreditation.
So, I think this becomes more relevant actually. Kunwari, di ba, I went to UP Manila for the review. So, hindi naman nila kilala, hindi nila na-review yung protocol ko beforehand. So, parang they had to make sure that me and my team all had the GCP just to ensure, to help make them, convince them that this will be practiced using ethical practices.
May question pa ba?
So yung
Tapos
journals,
yeah.
hindi sa journals nire-require kasi yan.
Yeah.
Doon lang sa review boards.
So journals would require yung ethics clearance na code.
May code. Yun lang naman hinihingi.
Kasi all of you are students, no? Right now? Or some,
Ay,
hindi ba? Kasi for students, kasi may tatlong klase ng review, no? So exam from review, you're not actually reviewed. Ibig sabihin kung nagti-3D printing ka lang, wala ka naman talagang human participation, you still submit your research proposal para lang makita kung ano ba talaga yung mechanism na meron ka doon. Usually in 3 to 5 days, you'll get an exemption. So this is common even in other countries. No, may mga kakilala kami na fossils yung inaaral nila, they still have to get an ethics clearance, no? Kasi kung minsan, it's not just that, you have to make sure that yung infrastructure mo for research, no, how you store the data, how you protect the data, yung mga ganon, no, it's not just yung simple lang na umuo lang yung participants, no. So, pero exempted yon. Yung isa would be expedited. Ibig sabihin, minimal risk to the participant, no. Mahirap i-qualify ang risk, no, pero technically, mas minimal siya than the other one which requires a full board, no? So, full board, if you engage with vulnerable populations, so children, no, marginalized groups, indigenous groups as well, no? Tapos, depende ko anong klaseng process yung gagawin mo, that's full board. Students, undergrad students, are encouraged, actually really restricted to protocols that are expedited. Ibig sabihin, the risks are low. Kasi maski ako rin naman maraming estudyante, kahit na ngayon, they wanted to do something very grandiose and very challenging, which is because as you, very idealistic yung gusto natin mangyari. So, merong mga estudyante, undergrad, na gustong mag-research on prison. No? They want to interview, for example, victims of war on drugs sa isang yung ganon. We're not saying that students should not do that, but then again, the responsible conduct of research can only be done by those more experienced in practicing the methods, no? So you can do that maybe with strong guidance from your faculty, from a professor, but for students themselves, they are heavily discouraged also from. Ganun din naman ma'am sa CHK, di ba po?
That's true. So my experience with the UP Manila, I've undergone expedited and a full review because not because the methods were complicated or anything, just because children ang involved. So pag children, necessarily full. So mas matindi pa sa nagde-defend ng thesis. Kasi nandun sila lahat, no?
May isang question
with
ko
hard,
dito.
difficult questions.
Sa CHK, how are fees managed for the
It's free.
It's
Yes.
Kasi in UP Manila, okay, to provide context, kung undergrad ka, no, technically the review is 5,000, but then it's for free, no? So that 5,000 na amount is shouldered both by yung vice chancellor for research na unit, no? And then half of it will be shouldered by your college, no? So, but technically there's a charge, no? Wala lang binabayaran yung estudyante. If you're a government worker, no, let's say a faculty from a government university, then that's 30,000 actually. And then kung outside ka ng government, kung private ka, that's 50,000.
Yes.
Oo. Yeah, so that is why what we want, okay lang yun kung Pfizer ka, 'di ba? Yung mga ganun sa UP Manila.
Mind you,
Big
I
Pharma.
was able to appeal yung first ko, yung 30, naging 10, umayag sila.
Oo, pwede kang
Only paying
tumawad.
10. Pero then yung second one, kasi funded siya, 50 talaga yung binayaran.
So there's an ongoing negotiation right now how to better the system, at least within UP, on how this can be incorporated sa administration na plano. With all the QA and everything that they want to do, yeah, better na ma-include talaga yung financial support for ethics review. Technically, if the Research Ethics Board began functioning this year, libre din sana siya because there's a budget for it. But we don't know how to sustain yung ganon na malilibre siya, most especially for students and those with minimal research
We were talking about it. This is something also that I wanted to bring up, no? Kasi yung sa AHHMSREB, we were already about to look into the fees. Yung fees and how the reviewers are supposed to be, given honoraria and stuff. Pero yun na nga, nagkaroon na nung initiative yung sa REB. So, hindi na namin tinuloy. So, pinapaubayan na namin sa inyo yon. Pero sana isipin nyo rin na mahirap din mag-review. Sana merong honoraria ang mga nagre-review.
What responsibilities do researchers have to monitor the long-term effects on participants, especially in studies involving intense training or dietary changes?
Long-term effects in participants, especially in studies involving intense training or dieting. So, the responsibility of the researcher, usually the interventions, no, especially in for the students, it usually ends, no, after you have given everything that you have promised, like as mentioned a while ago, the feedback, no, that you will give to your participants. So if you included that in the informed consent, no, that you will be given feedback regarding the outcomes of the research, then your responsibility for them will extend to that. But beyond that, normally it will not be approved naman if there are lasting adverse effects on the participants. So that safety is already guarded by ethics review as well. So,
Kasi just to provide context, for example, siguro nga ito po, particular sa studies nyo, no? Kung drug testing siya, nakalagay talaga sa informed consent. Supposedly, ang value ng informed consent is to inform the participants ano yung ino-oohan nila. Ibig sabihin, responsibilidad ng researcher to make sure na in a democratic society, right? That is why kapag may election, may kampanya. Because a well-informed populace is the only way to ensure na your democratic right is assured as well, right? So, ganun din supposedly sa research, no? Dapat naiintindihan ng participants mo kung kailangan mong i-translate, no?
Yeah.
So, ang isa doon, nakalagay doon, lalo na sa mga drug studies, na in the event na may adverse reaction, let's say yung individual, meron kang mechanisms in place on how to address that. So, like for example, ikaw yung magbabayad pag na-hospital siya. Up to this point, no? Ikaw yung shoulder yung ganon, kunwari nawalan siya ng trabaho dahil na nagkasakit siya because he or she participated in your research.
Aside from the fact that they can withdraw from the research at any time.
Yeah, yun yung beauty ng informed consent. Unlike before, na very totalitarian yung isang researcher, no? Ngayon, yung research ethics review is that the power is given to the participant. So it's the role of the researcher to continuously negotiate in a very humanistic way, no? So for example, if the researcher participant halfway through decided to change his or her mind, ayoko na, karapatan niya yon, no? And walang coercive na, well, there's a way maybe na hilutin yon para magpatuloy siya, no? Pero karapatan niya yon.
Pag ayaw,
Yeah. And if natapos na yung study at nagsabi siya na ayoko na pala, biglang nagbago. Let's say, sa war on drugs na ano, no, biglang, at first, idealistic siya, gusto kong baguhin yung lipunan, kaya gusto kong mag-participate. Pero in the end pala, na-realize yung implication nito sa safety niya, sa security nila, natapos na yung project, no, pwede niyang bawiin yon, no, karapatan niya rin yon. So, nasa kakayahan. That is why I guess researchers should also be trained on how to manage humans in yung interpersonal interaction. Oh, siguro nga kailangan pag-aral. Kaya siguro kung sa UP specifically, tinatapon ka sa mga komunidad, no? Or you are not only bound dun sa lab, no? And kahit na yung mga GEs mo, and that's the reason why GEs are there and other subjects, no? Not related to your major. Kasi gusto niya maging tunay kang tao afterwards, no? So you have to know how to deal with humans as well, no?
Holistic
Holistic approach siya, no? So obviously that's changing as well. Pero ganon, no? So sa informed consent, I guess,
Yes.
ganon din, ma'am. Lastly, siguro, how should researchers handle the dissemination of findings that could have significant implications for public health or sports policy?
Dissemination of findings is of
Paano
course
yun,
through
ma'am?
publication.
Kasi di ba, ma'am, kunwari, kung funding agency ka, yung exclusivity ng data kung minsan.
I
Di ba? Tricky yan.
think no, responsibility din ng primary proponent or have the research, especially kung nasa academic institution ka, to try to get rights to your data as well. Kasi why are we doing research, di ba, if not to contribute to the publications? Kasi kulang na nga yung publications, especially in our field, no? So sports, exercise, health. So for you to be able, no, to influence public or sports policy, you need to get it out there. You need to get it published. Yun lang talaga yung sagot eh. Parang once it's published and, you present this, so punta ka sa
Conferences, yeah.
conferences, or may kausap ka ng mga politicians, di ba? So
Yun din
you
siguro
can
yung,
convince them
yeah.
using
Although yun din yung
published work.
difficulty, ma'am, no? Kung kung privately funded ka kasi, pwedeng magkaroon ng stipulation yung funding agency na this knowledge belongs to us because we provided the money, no? If that money can generate a lot of money as well, I think that's one of the reasons why lumakas yung, what is that? In UP, there was this very, very sad incident before na I think it's in early 2000. Someone in Diliman discovered, it's a consortium anyway, discovered a drug way more potent than morphine, no? And then way better, actually, organically derived as well. And then before securing a patent for it, they decided na, let's go to conferences and fora. So of course, I mean, pharmaceutical companies would always send representatives to those places. And it might be immoral, pero it's not illegal that you get you get the knowledge because hindi naman siya patented. And so UP lost so much there. And then after that, lumakas yung copyright ng UP, umiikot sila sa buong UP system. Even yung kaliwang kamao ng UP ay naka-copyright ngayon, yung ganon, yung particular gradient ng maroon ng UP naka-copyright, yung ganon. Because after that incident, actually, lastly siguro, no,
Unethical practice, but it's not illegal. Diba?
I mean, ang isa rin siguro kasi, kunwari, very tricky, kunwari, you're interviewing someone with mental health problem, no? And then, sa interview mo, nakita mo, oh my God, may ganito siyang tendencies, no? Yung question doon, should you inform your participant as well about the research result?
As much as possible. Kung maghanap ng avenues to be able to communicate.
Dapat makaalam sila nung ano. Okay. Siguro lastly, for those who are doing research as well, marami kasi kami kakilala, which again, it's because of the practice in the past. For example, may ethics clearance ka, no? Pero ang pinagpaalam mo ay magpi-PhD ka. So, umuo silang mag-participate para magka-dissertation ka. After your PhD, nagpa-interview ka sa radyo, lalo na kung controversial siguro yung research mo, nagbigay ka ng mga talks, no? Public talks. Pero technically, hindi mo yun sinabi sa informed consent. dapat stipulate mo rin yon na parang beyond doon sa research mo, ganito yung gagawin mo. And technically, there's a shelf life or an embargo period for that. Ibig sabihin, hindi in perpetuity, you own the data. So nakastipulate din doon, mostly 3 to 5 years. Yung iba after the project is done, wala ka ng control. Ibig sabihin, after that third year, hihingi ka ulit ng consent with the presumption na people will change their mind in terms of agreeing to your research. Hindi mo rin siya pwedeng i-share sa colleague mo without actually getting consent. So, nakalagay din doon sa informed consent mo, sino lang yung may access ng data and what will you do in the event of data breach, no? So, yung mga ganon. So, akala ng mga tao, it's just to protect human participants. Pero the reason why you do ethics review is to actually better the method as
Yeah.
well. Mm-mm. So,
Okay. Okay na?
well, thank you for staying sa inyo. Sorry, we extended for a bit. Siguro just to... Okay, ako na lang. Sorry, just to give an award to so this is the certificate of appreciation for Professor Marla Frances T for exemplifying her expertise and valuable knowledge as research speaker on Does One Size Fit All? During the sixth episode of the UPD RE monthly research ethics seminar series, Etika Inan at Kaalaman, conducted on August 27, 2024 at the NSA conference room and on via Zoom and Facebook Live. So signed, Dr. Maria Corazon de Ungria, the current chair of the UPD Research and Development Modulio.
Thank you. Thank you. Ay, no. Hindi nakakabulog. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. And we can give it digitally. Thank you.
Next, yung next one ay sorry, sa September 12. Okay. So the next one would be provided by Dr. De Ungria. Specific ito sa research niya on indigenous people as well because siya yung current head ng DNA Analysis Laboratory. So she does genomic research on indigenous peoples in the Philippines, no? Specifically sa Mindoro, sa Tawi-Tawi, yung mga ganun, no? So you can also view this through Zoom and Facebook Live. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Ah, okay, for everyone online and those who are watching, okay, meron ding research, there's a task force for research integrity being constructed right now in Diliman. When we say research integrity, ito yung nagpe-perform. Actually, this is the law enforcement supposedly in Diliman, no? So for example, if you have cases, ang research integrity yung mag-handle ng case. What that? Maraming salamat for staying. Thank you.